watching CBC News Network, and I'm Michael Serapio. The royal tour of Canada's West Coast is now coming to a close. A live look right now at Victoria Harbour, where the departure ceremony will take place in just a few minutes' time. A last chance for many Canadians to see Prince William, Kate, and their children, Prince George and Princess Charlotte, before they say goodbye. Now, the royal departure will be at the end of what has been a very busy day for the Duke and Duchess. Will and Kate spending day 8 of the tour on both land and at sea. And of course, what would a West Coast trip be without going for a sail? William and Kate embarking on the tall ship Pacific Grace for a tour of Victoria Harbour. The Royals earned their passage hauling the mainsail with the young trainee crew and even taking a turn at the ship's wheel. Well, joining us now live once again in Victoria is the CBC's Mira Baines. Mira, hello to you. When will we see Prince George and Charlotte, do you think?
Well, that's what everybody seems to be asking. We have thousands of people here down and around Victoria's inner harbor, hoping to catch a glimpse of Prince George and Princess Charlotte. And they're hoping that that'll happen within the next half hour if everybody's on time. Now, a lot of people have been braving the off and on weather. It was raining earlier today. Now it's sunny, just to catch a glimpse of the royal children. Now, they've only made 2 public appearances since being in Canada. One was when the whole family arrived at the airport. We saw Prince George looking around very curiously at the airport, and we also saw Princess Charlotte. Now, later on, the children attended a tea party with the children of military families as well in Victoria. And so during that tea party, there were balloons. There was a lot of excitement there. There was a little petting zoo set up for the children as well. So Prince George is blowing bubbles. He's just 3 years old, and of course Charlotte, she's 16 months. Now, both children really seem to enjoy themselves. So people are hoping that on this final day of the royal tour that they'll be able to catch a glimpse of the children. Michael?
So, a very jubilant mood yesterday. Wondering what the mood is like today as we look at the people all gathered there waiting for the royal family to make their way to the seaplane terminal.
Well, the weather seems to be getting better, and so is the mood. Now, people have been lining up here for hours and hours just to get a good spot so they can catch a glimpse and, take that photo on their cell phones of this royal visit and this royal family making their final departure from Victoria's inner harbor. And so the mood is pretty jovial right now. There's a lot of children out here as well. And I think part of that is, they might get a chance to see Prince George and Princess Charlotte. But the mood has been very good. Kate as well, she was in a very good mood when she got off a tall ship earlier today. They were visiting with a program called Jack.org and meeting with members and organizers with that group as well on this tall ship. And so she was steering the ship, she was smiling, and then when she got off, she managed to mingle with the crowd. As well, we did catch some video. It was shot on an iPhone, and it was Kate waving at the crowd, and it looks like she's almost looking at the person taking that iPhone video, and she's smiling.
And I think we do have that iPhone video if you want to show it one more time to the people at home, because really some wonderful video, as you say, capturing Kate, the Duchess of Cambridge, having a very casual moment, as we see here, waving at the crowds, really enjoying this tour, this last bit of the tour, which just happened in the last couple of hours in Victoria. And let's talk about this. As we said, day 8 of what's been a long tour in both British Columbia and Yukon, and still a very packed day when it comes to events that they attended.
That's right, Michael. It's been a very busy day for the royal couple, and William and Kate seem to be generating a lot of goodwill because they seem to be focusing some of their attention on social causes as well. This is something that we've heard that they do in the UK as well. Here in Victoria, what they did was they first visited the Cridge Centre for the family. There they were meeting with organizers with that facility, and what they do there is they provide support for families having difficulties caring for children with disabilities, as well as providing support for families who have gone through really traumatic situations such as domestic violence. And then later on, they went to the Breakwater Cafe where they met with the Kelty Mental Health Resource Center. And then even after that, what they did was they boarded that tall ship, the Pacific Grace, and they met with members of Jack.org. And now, of course, that is an organization that is helping to destigmatize mental health issues for young people so that teens can come and ask for help when they need it. Michael?
Well, as you say, elevating issues have been very dear to their heart, not only here in Canada, but also over in the UK. Mira, thank you for this. The CBC's Mira Baines. We're going to join her again in a little bit. But as you just heard Mira say, it's been a very busy week for the Royals, and here's a look at some of the many highlights. It all started last Saturday when Will, Kate, George, and baby Charlotte touched down in Victoria. Royal watchers were delighted to see 16-month-old Charlotte make her royal tour debut. The Prime Minister and his wife were on hand to say hello, as was the Governor General and the BC Premier. Then Prince William and Kate made their way to the BC Legislature, where thousands of people welcomed the royal couple to Canada.
We are so pleased that George and Charlotte can be with us in Canada this time around, beginning their own lifetime of friendship with this wonderful country.
Now, the royal couple did not slow down, with more events and more crowds as the two traveled to Vancouver to tour an addiction centre for mothers and their children.
Very pretty dress.
Then Will and Kate took in a volleyball game during a stop in the Okanagan.
So it's just insane. Like, our whole team's just been preparing for this for like a couple weeks now.
They tried some Pacific gooey duck at a food and wine festival in Kelowna.
We're from Anchorage, Alaska, and we drove 14 hours.
And on Wednesday, William and Kate went north.
Who did you play with today?
Charlotte, her mom, Catherine, her mom.
They're like regular parents, it seemed. That's what struck me the most.
And on day 6 of the royal tour, the young parents organized a royal playdate for Prince George and Princess Charlotte. George, who turned 3 in July, and his 1-year-old sister were the center of attention at a children's party at Government House in Victoria on Thursday. And then, of course, came this very busy day 8 that Mira was just telling us about. And now here we are, the formal farewell from Canada. And as we wait for William, Kate, as well as their children to make their way to the Victoria seaplane terminal, let's go to Susan Caddo. She's the deputy editor of Hello Magazine. She joins us from our Toronto studio. Susan, let's begin here, because before we went on air, you and I were going through some of the social media feeds, and among the feeds we went through was the feed from Kensington Palace, and we saw a couple of things that sparked our interest. Let's begin with the tweet board that was sent out by Kensington Palace, and in that tweet board, it seemed to be quoting Prince William here, saying, "We feel very lucky to have been able to introduce George and Charlotte to Canada. This country will play a big part in their lives." And not only this tweet, but then a thank you video. Take a look at it. Now, we should say that video runs for longer than a minute. We're just showing a part of it right here. But obviously, British Columbia, Yukon making a very positive impression with both William and Kate.
Oh, yes. And I think, you know, what's great about what Kensington Palace put out is the series of tweets highlights, you know, different scenes from the whole trip. So you get to see a lot of the natural beauty of the different places they visited. You get to see some of the indigenous cultural displays that they took part in. And then, of course, it's fitting that they chose as their video to thank Canadians the, never before seen scenes inside that wonderful children's party. So it's a nice way of thanking Canadians, but also of getting the message out about what they did while they were here.
And also promising that George and Charlotte will have a long relationship with not only British Columbia and Yukon, but also Canada.
Yes, and I think that's a huge part of this trip. I mean, that's really the reason they brought such young children to Canada in the first place. We didn't see a ton of them, but the point is they were here, they were introduced to Canadians, and, you know, it's a sign that this is a relationship that the royal family wants to continue for generations to come.
Now let's talk about some of the highlights as we see what looks like the first vehicle and what may be a security entourage making their way down to the actual seaplane terminal. But let's talk about some of the highlights, beginning with the Sheway program that was in the downtown east side of Vancouver.
Yeah, I thought this was a really interesting thing to do so early in the trip because it is in the downtown east side. It is working with drug addicted or people who have been struggling with addiction during pregnancy or in the early months of having babies. And, you know, so it's quite a gritty engagement to kick things off with. But again, it's part and parcel of what this couple has focused on during their trip to Canada, but also just in all their time in the public eye in the UK as well.
Now, there were a number of beautiful images, among them the thousands of people who literally stood out there waiting for a long time to get a chance to say hello to both William and to Kate. But among the engagements that seems to have caught your attention was the one in Carcross up in Yukon.
I really liked this trip to Carcross. It seemed to have everything you want squeezed into one really busy kind of afternoon and evening. I mean, they met with locals, they talked to children, saw new parks, new facilities. They toured a mountain bike facility in some gorgeous scenery. And then there was that lovely moment with the steam train where they checked out a train that William's grandparents had traveled on, and they got kind of really quite up close to it, and there's these fantastic scenes of them sort of walking along the edge of a bridge like an old-timey movie. It was a really, I think, a nice visit, and it kind of was emblematic of what they were doing, how much they squeezed into a short time.
And perhaps not surprisingly, not only the Canadian media, but it seems the international media was very much focused on the royal children.
Oh, yes. And I mean, it's not really surprising. We've seen so little of Princess Charlotte since her birth, and to get these incredible scenes, especially those coming out of that party where she's hugging a bunny and sitting on a dog and, playing with the balloons, that's pretty priceless. So the whole world has been looking at those images, and I think we won't see a lot of the royal children, in the months to come. So I think we'll be seeing those images again and again too. So it'll be, I think, a really lasting feature in the way people think of these children.
And to my understanding, the members who've come here from the British media are also making a bit of a to-do, if you will, about the enthusiasm with which Canadians have greeted the royals.
Yes, I mean, one royal photographer told Hello that he's seeing the kind of crowds he doesn't usually see with a royal tour. So, obviously the enthusiasm of Canadians has made, it has gotten some attention in the UK because we've come out in such great numbers in not such great weather with, so much happiness to see them. And I think that has not gone unnoticed.
Mm-hmm. I think whenever something like this is planned out, especially in a Commonwealth country, that at times debates the place of the monarchy within the Commonwealth itself, and certainly countries like Canada, there is a bit of a fear that if you stage something like this, that it would actually invite protest. But we haven't really seen that in the tour that's taken place in BC and Yukon.
No, it's been actually a very nice, calm tour, and they've been greeted with a lot of affection everywhere they've gone, and I think they've returned that affection. Especially today, you saw some wonderful interaction between Kate and the crowd. When they got off those tall ships, they spent quite a while shaking hands with people who'd waited to see them, and it was actually really lovely to see the warmth of those interactions.
Well, the warmth of the interactions, but also to see just how much both Prince William and the Duchess were embracing the role of these royal walkabouts, because there were a few times when the official schedule fell behind. It became late because they were not listening to their handlers. The handlers were saying, we have to wrap up, we have to go on, but they were insistent that they spend time with the people who were waiting for them.
Well, I think there's a recognition that people have come out to see them, they have waited, and it means a lot to them to have that kind of royal interaction. It's the kind of thing people don't forget. I mean, you'll hear generations later, someone will say, oh, my mom was out and saw the Queen, 40 years ago. It's kind of a once-in-a-lifetime experience for a lot of people, and the royals definitely recognize that. They don't take that affection for granted either.
Susan, hang on to the line because we're going to speak to you again in a little bit. But as you and I are talking right now, I do want to bring into the discussion Mira Baines, our reporter on the ground in Victoria. And as we talk about the people that have been waiting just to try to get a glimpse of the Royals, Mira, tell us about the mood there in Victoria. These people have been waiting for quite some time now.
Well, it seems like thousands and thousands of people have actually arrived, and they've lined Vancouver's or Victoria's Inner Harbour, and basically they've been doing this for hours now. The weather, it's been off and on. It's been raining at times. The sun's been coming out, and so they're all waiting to get a good spot to catch a glimpse of William and Kate and their children, Prince George and Princess Charlotte. Now, the Royal Highnesses have not arrived yet at the Victoria Harbour seaplane terminal. Once they do get here, there will be a special farewell ceremony. But a lot of the people here just want to catch a glimpse of the children as well as the couple. They seem very excited. Some of them have seen members of the royal family before. They've seen the Queen. They've seen Princess Diana, and of course this is a very special moment because this is a very young couple as well, and this is some new energy in the monarchy. So people are quite excited. Michael?
Quite excited. And, you know, you've been covering the Royal Tour now for the past week. What have people been telling you about their experiences and having been able to say, however briefly, a hello to both William and Kate?
Well, I find that I've spoken to a lot of young mothers. They say that if you do want to meet the royals, you show up at some of these public appearances either with a bouquet of flowers or with children. And I found that a lot of the women that have met and spoken to Kate did have a young child or a baby with them. They said that she seems very down to earth. Sometimes she offers advice about parenting. She does have a brief discussion. They say she's just very, very nice, and they seem very thrilled to have met her. Michael?
Okay, Mira, stay on the line because I want to now turn over to Susan Cato again, the deputy editor of Hello Magazine. You know, Susan, we heard Mira there talk about the young energy that this royal couple brings to essentially the job of the monarchy. Talk about the shift in direction, because they seem to have really given a new energy and perhaps even redefining the role of what a royal tour should be doing.
Well, they're extremely interactive with their hosts, and you know, we've seen them on this trip really meeting as many members of the public as they can, which a lot of royal visitors do. But they're going on walks, they're checking out like mountain bike facilities. They're also bringing attention to causes that, frankly, I don't think a couple of generations ago the royal family would have gone anywhere near. Issues like addiction, issues like mental health struggles that young people are going through. And, to make such a focus on that in this short trip, I think has really, it touches Canadians because in part it reminds people of William's mother, Princess Diana, who really started, I think, a lot of the openness we're seeing in the royal family now. This is a royal couple that is really using their fame to bring attention to issues that need attention.
Well, you mentioned Diana, and I find that interesting because obviously there's a lot of affection for both William and Kate, and I wonder how much of that is an afterglow, if you will, of Prince William's very first trip to British Columbia. That was in the year after his mother died. And not only the year after his mother died, but really when Prince William became almost a media entity of his own. He emerged from being a young boy to this heartthrob prince. How much of the affection that we're seeing in BC has to do with the history that Prince William shares with British Columbia?
I think that a lot of British Columbians remember that visit because, there was people's hearts went out to William for having lost his mother, and then also this being thrust in the public eye as a awkward teenager and having millions of screaming, not millions, but, many screaming girls turning out to every public appearance. Your heart kind of went out to the guy, and to see him come back, and he was joking about that.
Susan, let me jump in. I'm sorry. We're looking now at Kate waving out of the vehicle in which she's in. This is obviously the motorcade now arriving at the Victoria Harbour seaplane terminal. This is the official farewell to the royal family from Canada as they wrap up what's been an 8-day tour of British Columbia and Yukon. Let's listen in and take in the sights and the sounds from Victoria. for those who are just joining us right now, you are watching the royal family, Prince William, the Duchess of Cambridge, and their children, George and Charlotte, arrive at the Victoria Harbour seaplane terminal, where they will take a seaplane. This is a part of their official farewell from Canada after their 8-day tour of BC and Yukon. And as a part of their farewell to Canada, they are being officially said goodbye to by the chief of the Songhees First Nation, the chief of the Esquimalt First Nation, the mayor of Victoria, as well as you saw there, Carol James, BC MLA, Member of Parliament for Victoria, Murray Rankin, as Kate now receives flowers as part of the official farewell. And as Prince George did when he arrived, he did not give a high five as he leaves Victoria right now, as we take in more of these images of the official farewell from Victoria. There you have the Governor General, David Johnston, as well as his wife, Her Excellency Sharon Johnston, saying goodbye to the royal couple.
Security! Oh, come on! Excuse me!
And now saying goodbye is the Premier of British Columbia, Christy Clark, and with her, standing beside her, is the local MP, the Minister of Sport and Persons with Disabilities, Carla Qualtrough, MP for the BC riding of Delta. And with that, some final waves from William and Kate and their children as they board a seaplane with Harbour Air. Now apparently Prince George very enthusiastic to get onto that seaplane. He was said that he was very interested in all the aircraft at their arrival, obviously still very fascinated with the seaplane upon which they're about to board as they wave goodbye to Canada. And the door is now closed on the plane that will take them to Victoria Airport. It is not, in fact, the Harbour airplane that will take them back to the UK. Of course, it cannot make that distance. It will actually be a short distance that this plane will travel. It will now take the royal family from Victoria's Inner Harbour to the Victoria Airport, and at the Victoria Airport, the royal family will board a Royal Canadian Air Force's plane, and it will be that plane that carries them back to the UK. But that last transfer will not be open to the public. It will not be open to the media. So this is officially the last part of the royal tour that has now lasted 1 week in BC and Yukon. And a bit of a treat as well, something very interesting to note. It will not actually be a direct flight to the Victoria Airport for the royal family. In fact, this Harbour airplane will actually tour the southern part of Vancouver Island, give the children and the royal couple a bit of a treat. Of course, William and Kate have seen much of British Columbia and Yukon, but their children have, for the most part, been at Government House in Victoria, so they will get a tour of Vancouver Island as they make their way to the Victoria Airport, cementing, as the Prince implied and Kingston Palace implied earlier, that both Charlotte and George will have a long relationship with both British Columbia and this country.
Okay, but are you using our shot? Because we need a few seconds to get pardon me?
The tour, which is now wrapping up, began a week ago, September the 24th, with the royal couple, royal family arriving in Victoria. Over the last many days, we've seen them tour several facilities in Vancouver, make their way to Bella Bella, Kelowna, Haida Gwaii, to Yukon in both Carcross and Whitehorse, ending today with a very busy day 8, a tour of a number of social services facilities in Victoria, even taking a tall ship sail, helping out with the sail, raising the sail as it left the inner harbor of Victoria, rather. Very busy day 8 and what has been a busy tour, as William and Kate have met British Columbians all across the province and people in Yukon as well. Let's take in the sight and the sound as the plane leaves Victoria's inner harbor.
Down, guys. Down.
Can you get down?
And you are watching the official farewell to the Cambridges, Prince William, the Duchess of Cambridge, Kate, and their children. Let's bring in Susan Caddo again. She's the deputy editor of Hello Canada. You know, Susan, I can't help but to think that as this plane gets ready to take off, Prince George must be very, very excited.
Could you see? He could barely wait to get on the plane. He was pulling at his dad's arm. It was quite funny to watch.
It was all very funny to watch. It was noted that he was far more fascinated with the aircraft when they first landed in Victoria than he was with the pomp and circumstance around him. The same case here, although the enthusiasm with which he waved to the crowds when he got out of that minivan was just infectious.
That was a real moment. I mean, when he had both hands going at once and the big smile on his face, he looked like, it's partly you're told, oh, wave, but he didn't have to. He went double bore on that. It was really terrific. And Charlotte was getting into the action too with the wave. I mean, they're naturals.
But I think if I was to draw a conclusion of the royal children, waving, yes, high fives, no.
No, that was pretty funny. I have to give that child credit for going in to try to get the high five and the handshake. But it was interesting that Prince George was consistent in his refusal to do that.
No to the Prime Minister earlier, and no to the young man who was trying to get a high five there. And there you just see George waving to the right of the screen and to the left, the plane about to leave the inner harbour. To the cheers of the crowd that are gathered there. And the plane is now out of sight, Susan. Although, not only the enthusiasm of Prince George waving with both hands I find infectious, but I also found it very charming that Prince William was a real dad in that moment. He opened up a minivan, a royal minivan, if you will, but he opened up the minivan and helped his kids out. He didn't leave it for his staff to do that. He was very much involved.
No, it's true. I mean, Prince William is a different kind of royal father. The very first time he brought Prince George home from the hospital, he was, getting the car seat into the back of the car with some difficulty. So he's been a very hands-on dad all along, and it's fun to see in action. It was very fun to see that kind of, natural interaction with his kids.